My name is Janine, and I'm 57 years old. When I found out my own mother had emptied my bank account, $42,000 gone overnight, I didn't cry. I walked straight to the bank and made them ask for her ID on record. For most of my adult life, I've prided myself on being careful, organized, and just a little bit stubborn. I work as a medical billing specialist in a mid-sized clinic in Ohio, a job that demands accuracy and patience. It's not glamorous, but it's steady. Over the years, I've learned how to stretch every paycheck, how to plan for emergencies, and how to protect my future. My savings account was my quiet comfort, proof that I could stand on my own 2 feet no matter what life threw my way. My mother, Patricia Reynolds, is 76. She lives about 20 minutes away in a little brick house she's owned for decades. She's always been a proud woman, sharp, opinionated, and, if I'm being honest, a little controlling. When I was younger, she used to remind me that she knew best about everything: friends, relationships, money. It took me years to see that her confidence was really just a mask for insecurity. Still, I respected her. She's my mother, after all, and I tried to be the kind of daughter who shows up when needed. I'd drive her to doctor's appointments, fix things around the house, and slip her a bit of money now and then when she said she was short for the month. I never minded helping her, at least until that morning. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I was running late for work and almost skipped checking my bank account. But something, call it intuition, made me log in on my phone before leaving the house. And that's when I saw it. My checking balance, which should have been over $43,000, was barely above $1,000. My heart started pounding so hard I thought I might faint. At first I convinced myself it had to be a glitch, maybe a pending transfer or system error. I closed the app and reopened it. Same result. $42,000. Gone. I sat down on my couch, shaking, and dialed the bank's customer service line. The woman on the other end was calm, almost too calm, as I explained what happened. She looked into my records and said, "According to our system, Ms. Reynolds, the withdrawal was authorized in person yesterday at your local branch." My voice caught in my throat. "That's impossible. I was at work all day. I didn't make any withdrawal." She hesitated before continuing. "The withdrawal was processed under the name Patricia Reynolds." For a second I couldn't breathe. My mother's name. I actually asked her to repeat it, thinking I must have misheard. But no, Patricia Reynolds. The air seemed to thicken around me. My mother and I share a last name, but she wasn't on any of my accounts. She had no access, no legal right to touch my money. I felt dizzy, like my entire world had tilted sideways. As soon as I hung up, I called her. She answered on the second ring, her voice sweet and casual. "Hi, sweetheart. Everything okay?" "Mom," I said, my voice shaking, "did you go to my bank yesterday?" There was a pause, just a heartbeat too long. Then she laughed softly. "Oh, honey, yes, I did. I just borrowed a little something. I'll pay you back soon." "Borrowed?" My voice cracked. "Mom, that was $42,000. "Oh, don't exaggerate," she said lightly. "You know I'll return it once my investments clear up. You have a good job, you'll be fine." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You can't just take money from my account. That's stealing." Her tone changed instantly, from sugar to steel. "Don't speak to me like that. I'm your mother. I've given you everything. What's mine is yours, and what's yours should help me. That's how family works." I was speechless. In that moment, I realized she truly didn't see what she'd done as wrong. She saw it as her right. I felt like a fool, for trusting her, for thinking she'd ever respect my boundaries. After I hung up, I sat in silence for what felt like hours. The betrayal hit deeper than I expected. It wasn't just the money, it was the fact that she had looked me in the eye for years and smiled, all while thinking my hard-earned savings were hers for the taking. I thought of all the times she'd told me she was proud of me, how she'd bragged to relatives about how responsible I was. Maybe that's why she thought she could get away with it, because I was responsible, because I'd always clean up her messes. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her face, that casual smile, as she justified stealing my future. But somewhere between anger and heartbreak, a cold determination began to take shape. She had crossed a line, and for once, I wasn't going to let her talk her way out of it. I needed proof. I needed the truth on paper, something she couldn't twist with her charm or her crocodile tears. I spent half the night gathering old account statements, printing out my transaction history and writing down every detail of what the bank had told me. By the time the sun rose, I had a plan. The next morning, I walked into the bank with a folder tucked under my arm. My stomach churned as I approached the counter. "I need to speak with the branch manager," I said, forcing my voice not to shake. The teller looked up, slightly startled. "Is there a problem, ma'am?" "Oh," I said, offering a tight smile. "You could say that." As I sat in the waiting area, my pulse pounded in my ears. I didn't know what I'd uncover, but deep down, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next would change everything between my mother and me. And that's when everything started to unravel. When Mr. Carlton walked into the small office and saw me sitting there, he smiled in that polite, practiced way people in customer service do. "Ms. Reynolds, good morning. What can I do for you today?" he said. I'd been banking there for over 15 years, long enough that most of the staff knew my face, even if only by sight. Mr. Carlton himself had helped me once when I refinanced my car. He'd always been professional, kind even. But that morning, when I explained why I was there, the color drained right out of his face. "I need to talk about a withdrawal that happened yesterday," I said, sliding my folder across the desk. $42,000 was taken out of my account. I didn't authorize it. He frowned, flipping open the folder. "That's a serious amount. Do you have any idea who could have—" "Yes," I interrupted. "It was my mother, Patricia Reynolds." That stopped him cold. "Your mother?" "She's not on my account. She's not an authorized user, joint owner, or anything of the sort. She had no right to access my money." He blinked several times, then leaned toward his computer and began typing. The room was so quiet that the sound of the keys seemed deafening. "Just one moment, Ms. Reynolds. Let me verify the record." I watched as his face tightened, his eyes flicking rapidly across the screen. He swallowed hard, then said, "It shows here that the withdrawal was indeed made in person yesterday at 10:32 a.m. "I was at work at that time," I said firmly. "I can prove it." Mr. Carlton didn't answer right away. Instead, he clicked into another tab, his fingers hesitating over the keyboard. Then he looked up at me and said, very carefully, "The individual who made the withdrawal presented identification under your name with matching address and account verification details. However," he paused, "the scanned ID we have on file for that transaction shows the name Patricia Reynolds." My stomach twisted. "So she didn't even pretend to be me? She used her own ID?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, but she insisted she was acting as you. She claimed she was your representative and said you'd sent her to withdraw the funds for an emergency." I stared at him, dumbfounded. "And you believed her?" His face flushed. "She had all your correct details. Account number, home address, even your date of birth. She signed your name on the withdrawal slip, and the teller said she was." Very convincing. I couldn't decide if I wanted to cry or... "Convincing?" I echoed. "She's 76 years old. Didn't anyone notice she was older than the woman on the ID?" Mr. Carlton's hands fidgeted nervously with a pen. "She said she'd recently had reconstructive surgery, following a medical procedure. Her face was slightly bruised. The staff didn't want to offend her by questioning it further." For a moment, I just stared at him. My mother, my manipulative, self-absorbed mother, had actually gone into a bank, told them she was me, and walked out with nearly every cent I'd saved. I leaned back in my chair, trying to steady my breathing. "You understand this is identity theft, right?" He nodded, still pale. "I do, Ms. Reynolds, and I assure you we'll cooperate with any investigation." "Good," I said sharply, "because I want that transaction frozen, flagged, and reported, and I want the scanned ID attached to the account record for legal review. If there's footage, I want it preserved." He hesitated again. "I'm afraid I can't release security footage without a legal request, but I'll make a note to ensure it's retained." "Do that," I said, "because I will be filing one." He nodded, clearly uncomfortable now, not because of me, but because he realized how badly his staff had messed up. "I'll flag your account immediately," he said, "and I'll make sure no one can withdraw funds without your direct authorization." I gathered my papers and stood. "I appreciate it, Mr. Carlton. But this isn't over." As I walked out of the office, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that I finally had confirmation, and devastation that it was all true. My own mother had committed fraud in my name, calmly and deliberately. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn her approval, and this was how she saw me, a source of money, nothing more. That night, I sat on my couch again, the folder open beside me, my phone buzzing nonstop with messages I didn't want to read. I scrolled through old texts from her, little snippets that, in hindsight, looked more like hints. I'm just a bit short this month. You'll help me when I really need it, won't you? And one from 2 weeks ago. That stopped me cold. Don't worry, I'll make it right once the house sells. I remembered that text clearly. I'd thought she was talking about repaying Fiona, my sister. But now it clicked. She'd planned this. Maybe not every detail, but she knew she'd take the money. She'd even comforted herself with the lie that she'd make it right later. I started taking screenshots. Every text, every voicemail, every shred of proof. If she could lie to my face, she could lie to anyone. And just as I was about to shut off my phone, another message came through. From her. You really shouldn't have talked to the bank. My hand froze over the screen. For the first time in my life, I realized my mother wasn't just manipulative, she was dangerous. After that chilling text, you really shouldn't have talked to the bank, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Call after call after call, all from her. I ignored the first 5, then 10. Each one buzzed through like a sharp reminder that my mother wasn't the kind of woman who accepted consequences easily. When I finally picked up, her voice came through the line, shaky, and, "You're ruining me, Janine," she said. No greeting, no pretense, just straight to the drama. I'm ruining. You? I shot back. You stole $42,000 from me. You don't understand, she said quickly, her words tumbling over one another. I needed it. I was desperate. After everything I've done for you, after raising you alone, you're really going to turn your back on me like this? There it was. The guilt. She always knew exactly which buttons to press. Mom, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady, raising me doesn't mean you own my life. You don't get to take my savings just because you think you deserve them. She sniffled on the other end, her tone shifting from anger to pity in seconds. You have no idea what I'm going through. It was for a family emergency. You'll see, I just needed time. What emergency? I asked. Silence. Then a long, awkward pause before she muttered something about house repairs and medical bills. I knew immediately she was lying. I'd been her daughter for 57 years. I could tell when she was spinning a story. Medical bills? I pressed. You said you paid those off with your insurance. What repairs? You told me last month the roof was fine. Her breathing changed. I could almost hear her scrambling for an answer. You know what, Janine? I don't owe you an explanation, she snapped. If you weren't so cold-hearted, maybe I wouldn't have had to take matters into my own hands. Then she hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone, my hands trembling. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. The betrayal was too big to even fit inside tears. I needed to do something. I called my sister, Fiona, hoping maybe she'd help me reason with Mom, or at least confirm whether something serious was going on. Fiona answered on the 3rd ring, her voice wary. Hey, Janine. I didn't waste time. Do you know Mom took $42,000 from my account? There was a pause, not shock, just silence. And that silence told me everything. Fiona, I said slowly, you knew, didn't you? She sighed. She told me she was borrowing it. I didn't think she'd actually do it. My stomach dropped. Borrowing? You make it sound like this was normal. She hesitated again, then admitted. She's done it before. Well, not from you, but from me. A few thousand here and there. She always pays some of it back. I closed my eyes. So you're telling me this is a pattern? She's our mom, Janine. She's old, she's scared. Don't call the police. Please, you'll destroy her. My jaw tightened. She destroyed herself the moment she forged my name. Don't do this, Fiona pleaded. You know she's not well. You can't just... Goodbye, Fiona. I ended the call before I could hear the rest. For a few minutes, I sat staring at my reflection in the dark TV screen, my own face looking older, harder. I'd never felt so alone. My mother saw me as a wallet, and my sister saw me as the villain for not letting her get away with it. But beneath the loneliness was something else, a quiet, simmering anger that hardened into resolve. If my own family wouldn't hold her accountable, I would. That night, I pulled out my laptop and started researching. I typed, theft by a family member, identity theft parent, forged withdrawal bank law. The results made my stomach twist, but they also gave me clarity. What she'd done wasn't just betrayal, it was criminal. Somewhere around midnight, an email pinged in my inbox. It was from the bank's fraud department. The subject line read, Verification Request, Account Withdrawal Review. I opened it immediately. Inside was a formal message from Mr. Carlton's office. Dear Ms. Reynolds, we have flagged the withdrawal in question for fraud review. Please confirm whether the identification scanned during the transaction matches the individual you suspect. Attached is a copy of the presented ID for your verification. My heart raced as I scrolled down to the attachment and clicked it open. There, staring back at me, was my mother's driver's license. Her full name, Patricia Reynolds, her signature, her date of birth, and below, the timestamp from the withdrawal. For a second, I couldn't breathe. It was one thing to suspect. It was another to see the proof. She hadn't just manipulated a teller or talked her way through a misunderstanding. She had literally impersonated me, signed my name, and taken my money as if she had every right. I stared at the image for what felt like hours, my thoughts spinning. Every ounce of denial, guilt, or sympathy I'd been holding on to evaporated. There was no misunderstanding. There was no family emergency. There was just her, a woman who'd spent her life taking and finally found a way to take everything. I hit reply. My fingers trembled as I typed a single line. Yes, that's her. Then I took a deep breath, opened my phone, and dialed the non-emergency police number. My voice didn't shake when I said, I need to report a case of identity theft. The next morning, I gathered every document I had, the transaction records, the bank email, screenshots of our text messages, and even a printed copy of my mother's driver's license that the bank had sent. I stacked them neatly in a manila folder, my hands shaking as I slipped on my coat. I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The local police station was only 15 minutes away, but the drive felt endless. My stomach churned the whole time. How do you walk into a police station and report your own mother? I told myself it wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. It was about boundaries. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the air smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. A uniformed officer sat behind the reception desk, typing slowly into a computer. He looked up as I approached. Can I help you, ma'am? Yes, I said quietly. I need to file a report for identity theft and fraud. He raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting that from someone like me, a middle-aged woman clutching a folder like it was a lifeline. Do you have any documentation? I opened the folder and began laying out the papers on the counter. My bank confirmed that someone used my name to withdraw $42,000 from my account. I know who it was. It was my mother. He blinked, his expression tightening. Your mother? Yes, I said, forcing the words out. She impersonated me at the bank and took the money. I have proof. He leaned forward skeptically, scanning the first few pages. But when I slid the printout of her driver's license across the desk, the one tied to the fraudulent transaction, something changed in his face. The skepticism melted into focus. Wait here, he said, gathering the documents. He disappeared into a back office for a few minutes, then returned with another man, older, serious-looking, wearing a badge clipped to his belt. This is Investigator Lewis, the officer said. He handles financial crimes. Investigator Lewis gave me a reassuring nod and motioned for me to follow him into a small office. I sat down across from him as he sifted through the papers. Tell me everything, he said simply, so I did. I explained how I discovered the missing money, how the bank confirmed the withdrawal, how the ID matched my mother's, and how she admitted to borrowing it. I even played a voicemail she'd left me, where she said she'd make it right once the house sold. Lewis listened carefully, occasionally jotting down notes. When I finished, he leaned back and sighed. Ms. Reynolds, technically this falls under financial elder fraud reversal laws. I frowned. Elder fraud? But I'm not the elder. He chuckled softly. I know. The law just happens to be structured to protect older adults from being exploited. But in your case, it's reversed. You're the one being exploited by an elder. We'll categorize it correctly. I couldn't help but smile weakly. That's ironic, isn't it? He nodded. Still, she's not protected from prosecution. She forged your identity. That's a serious offense, even if you're related. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt seen, believed. Lewis walked me through the process of filing an official report. I signed several forms and provided my bank contact information so they could verify the evidence. Before I left, he said, "It's never easy when family's involved, Ms. Reynolds, but you're doing the right thing." I nodded, though my chest ached. It doesn't feel like it. It will, he said quietly. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I kept staring at the ceiling, thinking about my mother, wondering what she was, thinking what she'd say when the police came to question her. My heart ached, but beneath the pain was a strange sense of relief. For once, someone else knew the truth. It wasn't just my burden to carry anymore. Early the next morning, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Ms. Reynolds?" a deep voice asked. "Yes, this is Janine." "This is Officer Daniels from the Financial Crimes Unit. I've been assigned to your case. The report was reviewed, and we're officially opening an investigation." My pulse quickened. "So it's active?" "Yes, ma'am. We'll be contacting your bank for footage and verification. We may also need to question your mother soon. Are you prepared for that?" My throat tightened. Yes, I'm ready. After the call ended, I sat motionless on my couch, feeling the weight of it all settle in. This was real now. There was no going back. That afternoon, I got another call, this time from Mom. The moment I heard her voice, I knew she knew. It trembled, softer than usual. "You had no right," she said, almost whispering. "They came to my house. Do you know how humiliating that was?" I clenched my jaw. "You humiliated yourself, Mom. You stole from me. I did it for us. For this family. You think the police care about that? You think they'll understand what it means to be a mother who's desperate?" Her words made my chest tighten, but I refused to bend. "I think they'll understand theft when they see it." There was silence on the other end, heavy and sharp. Then she exhaled shakily. "You really think you can do this to me and walk away?" Her tone changed. Low, dangerous, like a warning wrapped in sorrow. "If I go down, Janine," she said, her voice trembling but deliberate, "I'm taking you with me." The line went dead before I could respond. And for the first time, I realized just how far she might go to protect her lie. The following week, everything escalated faster than I could have imagined. What had started as a private nightmare between my mother and the bank suddenly exploded into a full-blown family scandal. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Cousins, aunts, even distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years were calling me one after another. Each conversation followed the same script. "Janine, how could you do this to your mother?" "She's 76, for God's sake." "You had her questioned by the police? What's wrong with you?" I tried explaining over and over again that she wasn't some helpless old lady being mistreated. She was a woman who had stolen $42,000 from her own daughter. But no one wanted to hear the truth. My mother had gotten to them first. Apparently, she'd told everyone that I'd set her up, that I was trying to frame her for a crime she didn't commit so I could get her house after she died. The more absurd her story sounded, the more people believed her. I tried staying calm. I even forwarded a few family members the official bank correspondence showing her ID scan, the transaction details, and the fraud claim. I thought seeing the evidence would make them understand. Instead, my aunt called me later that night and said, "Janine, this isn't like you. I think you need help. Maybe you photoshopped something." That broke me. My own family thought I was the manipulator, but I shouldn't have been surprised. My mother had always been an expert at playing the victim. It was her most powerful weapon. When she cried, people listened. When she told her side of a story, she made sure to lace every word with just enough pain and confusion to sound believable. Meanwhile, Officer Daniels kept me grounded. I met with him midweek to update him on the family drama, and he gave me a sympathetic smile. "It's normal," he said. "When the truth threatens someone's control, they double down on their lies. Don't engage. Let the process work. Truth takes time to surface." I nodded, but patience was hard to muster. Every night, I felt the same heaviness pressing on my chest. The guilt, the exhaustion, the anger. It was like reliving the same betrayal again and again every time my phone rang. Then the bank called with news that lifted a bit of that weight. They'd officially frozen the funds and filed their own fraud report with law enforcement. The investigator told me it was standard protocol when identity theft was involved, but hearing those words, fraud report, made me feel seen. My mother wasn't just getting away with it anymore. That feeling of relief didn't last long. 2 days later, there was a loud knock on my front door. When I opened it, my mother was standing there, her face red and puffy, her eyes blazing with fury. "You need to stop this nonsense right now," she said, storming past me into my living room. "Get out," I said flatly. She ignored me, pacing back and forth. "You've humiliated me. Do you know what people are saying? The bank froze my account. They're treating me like a criminal." "Maybe because you committed a crime," I said coldly. Her lip trembled. "Don't talk to me like that. You're my daughter." "Exactly," I said, "and you should have acted like my mother." She stopped pacing and stared at me, tears pooling in her eyes. "I'll fix this," she said softly. "I'll make everything go away. Just withdraw the police report. I'll pay you back. I promise." I folded my arms. "You can't fix this, Mom. The bank's already involved. They flagged your ID. They know it was you." Her eyes widened. "What do you mean, flagged my ID?" "The scan from your driver's license," I said. "It's permanently tied to the fraud record. Any claim or dispute has to go through verification." Her mouth fell open slightly, panic flashing across her face. "You told them to do that, didn't you?" "I didn't have to. It's standard procedure." She shook her head violently. "You've ruined my reputation. Everyone in town knows. You're killing me, Janine?" She stormed toward the door, then turned back one last time, her face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this. One day, you'll see what you've done to your own mother." Then she slammed the door so hard that the picture frames on my wall rattled. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door, my heart pounding. And yet, for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a strange kind of peace. Her mask had cracked. The guilt trips, the tears, the control, all of it was slipping. She wasn't untouchable anymore. That evening I brewed myself some tea and sat on the couch, letting the quiet fill the room. Maybe, just maybe, things were finally turning around. But peace in my life never lasted long. The next morning, I opened my mailbox and saw a thick envelope with my mother's return address. My heart sank before I even opened it. Inside was a stack of legal papers. She'd filed a civil complaint against me. Defamation, emotional distress, and false accusations intended to damage her reputation. I let out a bitter laugh. My mother hadn't just stolen from me. She was now trying to destroy me completely. When I opened that envelope and saw the words "civil complaint" stamped across the top, I actually laughed out loud. It was the kind of laughter that came from disbelief, the kind that masked something much darker underneath: rage. My own mother had not only stolen $42,000 from me, impersonated me at a bank, and dragged my name through the mud, but now she was suing me. Suing me. The complaint accused me of false accusations causing emotional distress. According to her, I had fabricated everything, manipulated the bank, and turned the police against her. She claimed I'd waged a campaign of defamation that destroyed her reputation and social standing. Reading those words made my blood boil. Every lie she told in that document was like a slap across the face. But instead of crumbling, I did what I'd learned to do best. I got organized. The next morning, I called an attorney I found through a referral from Officer Daniels. Her name was Andrea Klein, a litigation lawyer in her early 40s known for being meticulous and fierce in court. When she picked up, her voice was calm, direct, and full of quiet confidence. After explaining everything, the theft, the ID scan, the police report, and now the civil suit, she paused for a moment and said, "Janine, this is open and shut. Don't worry, we're going to handle it." Her words steadied me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like someone was truly on my side. Over the next few days, Andrea and I compiled everything. Every text message, every voicemail, every printed record from the bank. We even included the official report from Officer Daniels and a statement from Mr. Carlton, the branch manager, confirming that the scanned ID used during the withdrawal was under Patricia Reynolds' name. Andrea reviewed everything with the precision of a surgeon. "You did the right thing documenting all of this," she said. "Your mother built her case on emotion. We'll build ours on evidence." When the court date finally arrived, my stomach felt like it was full of stones. I hadn't seen my mother in person since she'd stormed out of my house. But there she was, sitting at the plaintiff's table when I entered the courtroom, dressed impeccably, her hair perfectly set, a string of pearls around her neck. She even dabbed at her eyes with a tissue as if she were already the victim. She didn't look like someone who'd committed fraud. She looked like someone attending church. And that was her greatest weapon. She knew how to perform innocence. When the proceedings began, her attorney stood and painted a picture that almost made me sound like the monster. He described me as an emotionally unstable daughter, estranged and resentful, who fabricated stories of theft to seek revenge. My mother sat beside him, nodding weakly, wiping fake tears from her cheeks. Then it was Andrea's turn. She didn't raise her voice or rush her words. She simply stood, composed and sharp, and began to present the evidence. "Your Honor," Andrea said, holding up a thick binder, "the defendant's claims are not fabricated. They are supported by direct documentation and witness testimony." She walked the court through each exhibit: the withdrawal slip signed in my name, the email from the bank, the screenshots of my mother's texts, and finally, the scanned image of my mother's driver's license used during the transaction. When that image appeared on the screen, the entire courtroom went still. The judge leaned forward, peering at the photo. "This is the ID used for the withdrawal?" Andrea nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. Patricia Reynolds presented her own identification while claiming to act as her daughter. You can clearly see the discrepancy." My mother's face drained of color. She suddenly stood up and shouted, "That's fake. It's been doctored." The judge slammed his gavel once. "Sit down, Mrs. Reynolds. We will verify it." At Andrea's request, the judge ordered a forensic verification of the ID record. We all waited in tense silence while the technician confirmed the metadata and system log entries. When the verification report came back a few minutes later, the courtroom seemed to collectively hold its breath. "The file is authentic," the technician said. "The ID belongs to Patricia Reynolds. Timestamp and system integrity confirmed." You could have heard a pin drop. My mother sank back into her seat, her face pale, her tissue clenched tightly in her trembling hands. Her attorney stared at her, clearly blindsided. Andrea turned to the judge and said calmly, "Your Honor, the evidence speaks for itself." The judge sighed heavily and looked directly at my mother. "Mrs. Reynolds, the court finds no merit in your defamation claim. The defendant's statements were truthful and substantiated. This case is dismissed with prejudice." It was over. Just like that. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, not of sadness, but of exhaustion and relief. Before I could even exhale, the judge turned to me. "Ms. Reynolds," he said gently, "given the established fraud, would you like to pursue restitution?" My throat tightened. I nodded slowly, whispering, "Yes, Your Honor." My mother turned to look at me, her expression unreadable, somewhere between shock and fury. The judge scribbled something on his notes, then looked back up. "Very well. A hearing will be scheduled to determine restitution and any potential criminal charges." Andrea reached over and gave my hand a quick squeeze. "You did it," she whispered. But as I glanced toward my mother, I realized it wasn't over. Her pale face had gone rigid, her jaw clenched tight. I knew that look. It wasn't defeat. It was the quiet, simmering kind of anger that only came before retaliation. And sure enough, when the judge announced the date for the next hearing, the one that would determine criminal charges, her eyes met mine, cold and unblinking. In that moment, I understood something chilling. My mother wasn't done fighting. When the defamation case was dismissed, I thought I'd finally be able to breathe again. The judge had seen the truth, my lawyer had stood her ground, and for once, my mother's lies had failed her. But what I didn't realize then was that justice in court doesn't always equal peace at home. The day after the hearing, my phone rang. It was my sister Fiona. I hesitated before answering, already guessing what was coming. Her voice exploded through the speaker before I could even say hello. "You're sending Mom to jail, Janine. She's 76 years old. Do you have any idea what that'll do to her?" I closed my eyes and took a breath. "Fiona, she stole $42,000 from me. She impersonated me. This isn't about age, it's about accountability." "She's your mother," Fiona shouted. "You're supposed to protect her, not destroy her." "I did protect her." For years, I said, my tone firm but calm. I covered for her lies, her manipulations, her guilt trips. I let her take from me because I didn't want to hurt her. But this time, she crossed a line she can't just cry her way out of. There was a sharp pause on the other end. Then Fiona's voice came back, cold and trembling. You always were ungrateful. She did everything for you. You wouldn't even have that money if it weren't for her sacrifices. I almost laughed. Her sacrifices? You mean the years she spent living off everyone else's pity? Fiona gasped like I'd slapped her. You know what? I can't do this. Fiona... But the line went dead. I stared at my phone, watching as her name disappeared from my contacts. Blocked. Within hours, I realized she wasn't the only one. My cousins, my aunts, even an old family friend, all of them unfriended or blocked me on social media. My inbox filled with messages I didn't want to read. How could you? You're heartless. She's your mother. It was like being erased overnight. For days, I tried to hold my head high, telling myself that the truth didn't need defending. But late at night, when the house was silent, the loneliness crept in. No matter how justified I felt, it still hurt knowing that the people I'd grown up with now saw me as the villain. Then, one evening, a message popped up on my phone from an unfamiliar number. Rachel. Hey Janine, it's your cousin Rachel. I just wanted to say I believe you. I froze, staring at the screen, half afraid it was some kind of setup, but I replied anyway. Me. Thank you. That means more than you know. Rachel wrote back almost immediately. I know what it's like. She did something similar to me a few years ago. Pressured me into lending her money for a car she never bought. She said she'd pay me back once she sold her jewelry. Never happened. I sat there in silence, reading her message again and again. For the first time, I realized I wasn't the only one. My mother's manipulations had been quietly spreading through the family for years, disguised as favors, temporary loans, or emergencies. Everyone had been too afraid or too guilty to say no. Over the next few days, I spoke more with Rachel. She told me stories that mirrored mine, small betrayals that added up to a lifetime of deceit. Together, we started reaching out to other relatives privately. A few responded hesitantly, admitting they too had lent my mother money they'd never seen again. It wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about exposing the pattern. Andrea, my lawyer, said these statements could support the case if restitution became contested, so I gathered them carefully. Every story, every screenshot, every message confirming what I'd always known deep down. My mother wasn't just manipulative, she was habitual. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang again. It was Officer Daniels. Ms. Reynolds, he said in that calm, steady voice of his, I wanted to let you know the district attorney is officially moving forward with your mother's case. There will be a preliminary hearing for the criminal charges. My heart dropped. Even though I'd expected it, hearing it out loud made it real. Criminal charges, I repeated softly. Yes, ma'am. They'll notify her soon. Are you prepared to testify again if necessary? I hesitated before answering. If that's what it takes. After the call ended, I just sat there in my kitchen, staring at the papers spread across my table, bank forms, legal notices, family messages. My whole life had been reduced to evidence and arguments. I didn't want to ruin my mother. I didn't even want to see her punished. What I wanted, more than anything, was acknowledgement. I wanted her to admit what she'd done. That night, I cried, for the first time in weeks. It wasn't anger anymore. It was grief. Grief for the mother I thought I had, the sister I'd lost, the family that had chosen denial over truth. I wiped my eyes and tried to sleep, but the ache wouldn't leave. Somewhere deep down, I still hoped that maybe this would wake her up, that maybe she'd finally face what she'd done. But that hope shattered the next morning when my phone buzzed with a new message from Rachel. Rachel. You need to see what Mom just posted online. My stomach flipped. I opened the link, and the moment the page loaded, I felt my pulse spike. Whatever she'd done this time, it wasn't just going to hurt me. It was going to destroy what was left of my family's name. Rachel's message came through with a link and only 5 words. You need to see this now. I hesitated for a moment, but curiosity and dread got the better of me. When I tapped the link, it opened straight to my mother's Facebook page, and my heart dropped. Her post was long, pages long, a dramatic essay written in that familiar, self-pitying tone she'd perfected over the years. The first line read, "I never thought I'd live to see the day my own daughter would betray me." My breath caught as I scrolled. She had accused me, publicly, of elder abuse, financial exploitation, and emotional cruelty. She claimed I'd manipulated the bank into freezing her money, that I'd turned the police against a lonely old woman, and that I was trying to have her jailed to inherit everything early. The post had already been shared over 200 times. The comments section was a mess of strangers offering prayers, sympathy, and outrage. "This is disgusting. What kind of daughter does that? Protect our seniors. You should sue her." It felt like being stabbed in the chest. I could almost hear her voice behind every word, rehearsing her lines like she'd done in court, twisting half-truths into tragedies until she sounded like a saint. I slammed my laptop shut and pressed my palms to my eyes. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. It wasn't enough for her to destroy my reputation with the family. Now she wanted the whole world to see me as a monster. But within hours, the situation shifted in a way I hadn't expected. Rachel messaged me again. "Don't worry, we're handling it." "What do you mean?" I typed back, my fingers shaking. "Just watch." When I reopened Facebook later that night, the tide had turned. Underneath my mother's post, her narrative was starting to unravel. Fast. Rachel had commented first, calmly posting screenshots of my mother's text messages to me, including the one where she'd written, "Don't worry, I'll make it right once the house sells." Then another cousin, Charlotte, shared a photo of the withdrawal record and ID verification page with the caption, "I didn't want to get involved, but she's lying. The bank confirmed it." One by one, others who'd stayed silent started speaking up. She borrowed from me too and never paid it back. She told me Janine had gifted her the money, but that was a lie. There's a court record. Look it up before judging. Screenshots of the dismissal from the defamation case began circulating. Someone even uploaded the official court filing that confirmed the judge's ruling, complete with my mother's name listed under plaintiff, Patricia Reynolds, dismissed. Within hours, the comment section turned brutal. The same people who had defended her earlier were now retracting their sympathy. "Wait, is this the same woman who forged her daughter's ID? I saw the documents. She's a fraud. Shame on you for lying about your daughter." The tide had shifted completely. The truth, messy, painful, and public, was finally out. By morning, my mother had deleted the post, but the screenshots had already spread across local Facebook groups. Her neighbors, her church friends, even people from her old job were sharing the story. There was no taking it back. That afternoon, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, my mother stood there. For the first time in my life, she didn't look composed. Her makeup was smudged, her clothes wrinkled, her hair messy. She looked smaller somehow, fragile. Her eyes darted up to mine. "I've lost everything," she whispered. I didn't answer right away. The words were heavy, carrying years of manipulation, guilt, and heartbreak. "I lost my friends, my reputation. Even Fiona won't speak to me," she continued, voice trembling. "They all think I'm a thief." I folded my arms. "You are a thief, Mom." She flinched. For once, she didn't argue. She just looked down, tears pooling at the corners of her eyes. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said. "I was scared. I thought I could fix it before you got hurt. I made a mistake. I wanted to feel sympathy, but I couldn't. Not anymore." "You lost everything," I said softly, "the moment you took from me." Her chin quivered. "Please," she whispered, "just drop the charges. I can't handle this. I'll give you back what I can. I'll do anything." I stared at her, searching for the mother I used to know. The one who baked me birthday cakes, who hugged me after every heartbreak, who used to tell me I was her world. But she wasn't there. This woman standing on my porch was a stranger. "I can't," I said quietly. "This isn't about the money anymore. It's about respect, about what's right." She wiped her face, nodded stiffly, and turned to leave. "You'll regret." "This?" she murmured, barely loud enough to hear. "You think you've won, but you haven't." The door closed softly behind her, but her words lingered long after she was gone. That night, I sat on my couch, staring at the glow of my phone. Rachel texted again to check in, telling me I'd done the right thing. That truth had a way of surfacing no matter how deep someone tried to bury it. For the first time in months, I believed her. I thought that was the end of it. But the next week, a knock at my door brought something new. A certified letter from the district attorney's office. I tore it open, my hands trembling as I read the words printed in bold, sentencing date confirmed. My breath caught. It was happening. This time, there would be no lies, no excuses, no Facebook posts to twist the story. This time, the truth would stand in a courtroom, and she would finally have to face it. The day of my mother's sentencing arrived on a gray, cold morning that seemed to mirror exactly how I felt inside. Heavy, numb, and tired. I'd been waiting for this moment for months, yet when it finally came, I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. Just a strange quiet, like the air before a storm finally breaks. I sat in the courtroom with trembling hands clasped in my lap, my heart pounding against my ribs. Andrea sat beside me, calm and professional, flipping through her notes. Officer Daniels was there too, standing near the back with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. When they brought my mother in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked so small, fragile even, wearing a faded beige coat that I remembered from my childhood. It used to hang in our hallway when I was a little girl, smelling faintly of her perfume and cigarette smoke. Seeing her in it again, walking slowly to her seat with her head lowered, hit me harder than I expected. For a fleeting moment, I felt pity. That coat reminded me of simpler times, before all the manipulation, before the guilt trips, before I realized love could come with a price tag. But then I remembered the sleepless nights, the betrayal, the accusations, the way she'd looked me in the eye and told me I was ruining her life while she was busy emptying mine. That pity faded into something else. Acceptance. The courtroom was nearly silent as the judge entered and the proceedings began. He reviewed the case, summarizing the events in his measured, impartial tone. This court finds the defendant, Patricia Reynolds, guilty of identity theft, fraud, and unauthorized withdrawal of funds, he said. My mother kept her eyes on the floor. When the judge began reading her sentence, I felt my breath catch. Given her age and lack of prior convictions, this court is issuing probation for 2 years, mandatory therapy, and full restitution of $42,000 to the victim, Janine Reynolds. There was no applause, no gasps, just the steady scratching of the court reporter's pen. The judge continued, "Payment will begin immediately, to be distributed through the restitution office on a monthly schedule." I didn't cheer. I didn't even smile. I just exhaled. It wasn't justice in the grand, dramatic sense. It was quieter than that. A small correction, a rebalancing of something that had been broken for too long. When court was adjourned, I stood up, unsure whether to look at her or walk away. She hesitated near the aisle, and for a moment I thought she might turn to me, might say something, anything, but she didn't. She passed right by me, her chin trembling, her eyes glassy and unfocused. She didn't meet my gaze once. That was the last time I saw her in person. Months later, a thin envelope arrived from the county restitution office. Inside was a check for $500, the first payment. It wasn't much, but I stared at it for a long time, running my fingers over the numbers. It was strange, a physical reminder that even broken systems can still make small amends. I took that check to the bank the next morning. As I stood at the counter, filling out the deposit slip, I realized I didn't want to put it in my old account, the one she had violated. That space still felt tainted, like a memory I couldn't scrub clean. So instead, I opened a new account under a fresh number, one that only I could access, one that would never be touched by anyone else. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about reclaiming control. In the months that followed, the rest of my family stayed distant. Fiona never called again. My aunt still believed my mother's version of evil, clinging to the idea that I had destroyed the family, and maybe, in their eyes, I had. But I couldn't carry their guilt for them. Rachel stayed in touch, though. She'd check in every few weeks, reminding me that telling the truth doesn't make you cruel. It just makes you brave enough to live with reality. Her messages became little lifelines, gentle proof that I wasn't as alone as I sometimes felt. Slowly, I began to find peace in the quiet routines again. My mornings returned to normal. Coffee before work, soft music on the drive, small talk with coworkers who didn't know the chaos I'd endured. My evenings were spent reading or journaling instead of answering angry phone calls. For the first time in years, my life was truly mine. Every so often, I'd think of my mother. I wondered if she went to her therapy sessions, if she ever told the truth there. Maybe she found some version of redemption, or maybe she was still rewriting the story in her head, convincing herself that I was the villain. I'd never know, and maybe that was for the best. What I did know was this: blood doesn't always mean love. Sometimes it's just biology, and sometimes walking away isn't cruelty, it's self-preservation. The betrayal still stung, but it no longer controlled me. I'd finally stopped trying to understand her choices, and instead focused on my own healing. So when people ask me now if I regret it, if I regret going to the bank, involving the police, or making them ask for her ID, I tell them the truth. I shake my head and say, no, because that was the moment I finally stopped being her victim. In the end, I didn't just protect my money, I protected my peace. It took losing $42,000 to finally see what my love had been blinding me to all these years. Sometimes the hardest truth isn't that someone betrayed you. It's that you let them do it more than once. Have you ever forgiven someone who didn't deserve it, just because they were family? Tell me. If it were your own mother, what would you have done?